Hi everyone. Today we're talking with Amit Grinvald. He's a financial advisor working from Spain at the moment. And he's the organizer of the TEDx UNYP in the Prague, Czech Republic. And he has been doing a lot of coaching and mentorship sessions as well. So we will be talking about personal finances, the TEDx, and communications skills as well. So welcome, Amit. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Ricardo. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Good. So, Amit, so you start working into personal finances several years now, or yeah, can you tell me the story behind your work?
Yeah, I mean, my career has developed pretty organically over the years. Um,
Mhm.
just before university and during university, I wasn't really working full time. I just did internships here and there, from marketing to venture capital, just to kind of check what I liked doing, what I was good at, but nothing too serious. These were mainly summer gigs over the summer when I wasn't studying. And then after I finished my bachelor's degree in Prague, I moved to Vienna to do my master's in international management. And while I was there, one of my ex professors in Prague co founded a tech startup and was building a team in Prague. So he reached out to me and told me that he would like me to come have a conversation with his business partner, who's the CEO of the company. So I hopped on a train, I came to Prague, and we had a conversation. And then I started working there as a market analyst, as a part of the very early team, and then pretty quickly grew within the company to eventually become head of accounting and business operations across the company's presence in the US, Europe, and India. So I was doing that for 5 years, which was a great learning experience. I was involved in work across all the different departments and with people in across 3 different continents. So I learned so much in that process.
Mm.
And then at the end of 2022, I decided to leave that job at the startup for a career that's more freelance based, so I could pursue different projects and something that was also more client facing, because I really love working with people, which ultimately led me to my work as a wealth consultant or financial advisor. Meanwhile, at the same time, I've been organizing my TEDx event, TEDx UNYP, in Prague for 8 years, which started just as a passion project, but has evolved to be a more professional endeavor. And then I also do some consulting projects. I coach on communication and public speaking and contribute to different blogs and publications in different areas. So, um, yeah, so that's kind of how everything has come to be what it is now in terms of what I do.
Good. And so how? Yeah, you are kind of multifaceted, right? Because you are learning, you are being part as a financial advisor, but also communications and organizing an event are kind of different, well, are kind of complementary somehow, right? But they are kind of different endeavors, right?
Yeah, it's weird. I always, when people ask me to introduce myself and what I do, even when people just ask me where I'm from, it's a question that I've often found quite difficult to answer because my background is pretty uh, complex. But I think, growing up in different places and experiencing different cultures, and also working across different fields, I've come to appreciate the beauty of that multifaceted identity that I guess I have. Um, but yeah, I mean, everything is kind of driven by the same thing. My central focus has always been helping people elevate their potential. I'm really passionate about empowering others and fostering transformative change. Even though I do a lot of different things, if you look at the titles, whether it's advisor, consultant, coach, mentor, the central focus is always kind of guiding others and helping others and elevating their potential. There's a really good quote by Albert Einstein, who's been one of my heroes forever, which is, only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. And that's always been a guiding principle in my life, whether it's professional or personal. So yeah, I mean, I like doing different things. So it's very hard for me to say no to different opportunities and projects that come my way.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, so just wondering about, yeah, all these different areas and topics. So, do you have any system in place or ways that you manage your days, or how does it work right now
Uh,
towards that organization?
yeah. It can be it can be difficult, and days can be very long. Uh, I'm a big fan of time blocking. I've been doing that a lot in the last year or so. This is where you like block uh, times in your calendar for different things and plan that in advance. I kind of have to do that because I tend to have so many different things and projects going on at any one point. So every Sunday before the start of the week, in the evening, I sit down and I allocate blocks in my calendar for different tasks. So, from 8 to 9 in the morning on a Tuesday, I'll engage in LinkedIn. Then from 9 to 10, I'll just do some admin stuff. And then just depending on what's going on, I'll just plan my week that way. And that kind of allows me to plan my productivity so that my mind is not all over the place in terms of what I need to do.
Okay. And are you doing that kind of like project based or a specific task based? Wondering, like, let's say, imagine you have a TEDx blog, or then you have finance advisory blog, or yeah, or is based, as you mentioned, only task based.
It's it's more project based unless there's something really
Mm.
specific. So, I'm currently drafting an article for a training magazine who have asked me to contribute to their April issue. So I have to submit that by the end of January. So I have time in my calendar for, first draft of article for training magazine. Or if I know that I have to write a blog in 2 weeks, then I'll put maybe, an hour this week to work on the first draft and then take some time to reflect and think about it. And then the next week I'll sit down again and do that. So it's yeah, mainly project based, and then with work that's more broad with financial advisory, for example, things can kind of change, and there may be different admin things that I need to work on. So I'll just put like 2 hours to catch up on admin work for my financial advisory job. So it just depends on
Mhm.
what's going on, really.
Okay. And now, if we go towards the financial advisor part for first, so yeah, can you mention if you have any specific belief that maybe are kind of contrarian compared to what most people believe on personal finances?
Well, I think there's a lot of myths about personal
Mm,
finance that I've encountered, and I had the same thoughts before I kind
mm,
of did work in the space. Um, one common one that I got this yesterday when I had a call with a prospect is I don't have enough money to invest, or I need to wait until I have more money to invest, which doesn't really make much sense. It's like waiting to be in perfect shape to start going to the gym. You have to start somewhere, and you don't have to be a millionaire to start investing. Small, consistent contributions can have a pretty significant impact over time. The key is really starting early, even if it's small. If you look at Warren Buffett, who's arguably the best investor of our time, about 99, I think that's the right statistic, about 99% of his wealth was created after his 50th birthday. So that just illustrates the importance of starting early. Another one that I think is pretty interesting to think about, which is a little more complicated, is that all debt is bad. Now, I used to work in accounting, so I have an understanding of debt being used as a tool, as it is in business, and not all debt is created equal. In personal finance, it's more complicated because it requires a level of discipline and responsibility that some people just might not have. And while reckless borrowing can be detrimental to your personal finances, if you use credit and debt in a strategic and responsible way, it can be a really powerful tool. Mortgage is a great example. People don't really think of it as debt, but it is. But if it involves appreciating assets and acts as a forced savings and offer tax advantages and
mm,
leverages in real estate, then that can be a good form of debt. So the key is really to use that as a tool to enhance your financial position rather than than hinder it. And there can be a fine line when you're using it on a personal basis. So you just have to, manage it wisely, avoid excessive debt accumulation and payoff balances before any significant interest charges are being accrued. So responsible use of debt can be really powerful, but it's a little tricky with personal finances because you have to be responsible, which a lot of people just don't like being.
Okay, yeah, it's a huge level of commitment to achieve
Yeah.
that. Um, yeah, talking on these specific items of MIF, do you, because and it's kind of related, I assume that you have some key values or non-negotiables that you try to follow for yourself and also for other people that you are advising. Do you have any guidance principles for you that are you kind of try to remember in weekly basis or daily basis or
Yeah,
something like that?
I was recently reflecting that I recently completed a course in connected leadership from the Yale School of Management, and part of it was kind of reflecting on your personal values that are applicable in both your personal and professional life, because they don't necessarily have to be separate. And the three that I came up with me, I mean, I like alliteration because it always makes things memorable, are connection, community, and continuous learning. I think building genuine connections is at the forefront of my approach in most things in life, be it personal or professional. In finance specifically, understanding a client's story, their aspirations, their fears is key, and that connection goes beyond just numbers. It's about building a trusted partnership where the client feels heard and where I can really give recommendations that are relevant to their individual journeys, because each client's position and circumstances are different. So these values of connection and integrity, help guide me in building trust with clients and ensuring that they feel confident and informed at every step. In terms of community, my business is not, or my work is not just about individual success. It's about contributing to the broader community. That's particularly relevant when it comes to TEDx, for example, but also in everything that I do. I really believe in the power of knowledge to transform lives. So I'm committed to sharing that knowledge, the knowledge that I have, but also getting knowledge from other people to empower the community. That's why I love writing articles, whether it's on my own page or for different blogs and publications, giving seminars, or just having conversations with people. And that kind of leads into continuous learning. And finance is a very dynamic field. If you think about like the topic of cryptocurrencies, for example, it evolves every day. There's something different. So I always strive to stay as up to date as I can with market trends and global shifts, so that I can, ensure my clients and my community benefit from the most current insights. And if someone asks me something that I don't know anything about, or I don't know enough about, then I'll go away and look it up and learn about it, and then share my learning with them or with other people. But I mean, I'm kind of a nerd. I love learning, so this isn't really a hardship. This really isn't a hardship for me. But yeah, I would say connection, community, and continuous learning are three values that kind of guide me in most things, professionally and personally as well.
Okay. On this process of helping people, and maybe of course we can go to the finance part, but also we can talk about the communication part as well. Yeah, how do you help them towards defining goals and mindset that they need to do? Because mindset changes more or less, right? So um, do you have any specific framework for that maybe you can explain us, or yeah, or way to more than we are in January 2024, right? So it's like people, well, in theory already did it in December, but let's say now someone is doing goal settings or how to achieve their goals and stuff like that. If you have any frameworks, feel free to share it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question and very relevant for January. I mean, I always make resolutions at the beginning of the year because I just think it's nice to have something that guides you throughout the year. I think the first step is really to have a deep understanding of what you value and aspire to achieve. With finance, I like to go for a more value-driven approach because that's what really drives people in their decisions. Whether it's planning for retirement, if you're at that age, or securing your children's education, if that's what you're currently care about, or just building wealth, saving for a house. It's about empathy first. So you have to start by listening, so you understand their situation, their goals, their dreams, their fears, and their circumstances, their level of job security, their income stability. All those considerations form someone's goals. And in finance, risk tolerance is something that's very important as well. For example, if you work for your parents' corporation and you don't have kids, you can probably afford to take more risk than someone who has a family of 5 to feed. You have a higher level of job security. It's not likely that you're going to lose your job if it's a family company and you don't have anyone who's financially dependent on you. So that's part of, risk tolerance is a big part of assessing or defining and evaluating your financial goals. Once you understand the kind of overarching aspirations, I focus on educating them on various financial concepts and options depending on their level of knowledge. This could include discussing different investment vehicles, saving strategies, the power of compound interest, which is like one of the big concepts in finance. The aim is really to empower them with knowledge so that they can make informed decisions. At the end of the day, it's their money, so they need to make decisions that are true to their situation and their values. So my part in educating them is just to give them all the knowledge and all the context they have so that they can, define goals that are really relevant.
Okay. And how do you play towards the creation of the habit to then to actually achieve the goals? Because one first step maybe of course is to define the goals and that are aligned to their values and their belief and their risk tolerance, right? I think that's step number one, I assume,
Yeah.
right? And then but then what happens after January passed? Maybe the hype is gone of the new year. So that's something that maybe, of course, we all struggle, right? Like, how do
Yeah.
we keep the momentum? Yeah,
Yeah, it's like if you go to the gym, January is like the worst because it's full of people, and then as soon as February 1st hits, it's you have the whole gym to yourself. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
habits are so important in everything, and
Mm.
like in finance, consistency is maybe the most crucial habit. Is the discipline of consistent saving or investment, depending on what you do. It's not just about how much you save or how much you invest. It's about how consistently you do it. If you start early and invest regularly, even in small amounts, that can make a pretty significant impact because of concepts like compound interest, which is a really powerful concept. So consistency is really important. So just kind of check in on them. Maybe it's best to automate their savings or investments because then you remove emotion out of the equation. If it just happens automatically at the beginning of every month, you send this amount of money to this savings plan or investment platform. Another habit in personal finance is living within your means. I think this can be very difficult for a lot of people, especially younger people who are just kind of starting to make decent money. If they have their first promotion, is inflating their lifestyle. I think building a habit of developing a budget and sticking to it and understanding your income and expenses and defining them will kind of help you ensure that you're not consistently overspending. Of course, if you work hard, you want to enjoy the money that you're making, but it's all about finding a balance and making informed decision. Personal finance is very often about sacrifices, so deciding what sacrifices you're willing to make will determine your journey towards whatever financial goals you're trying to achieve. And then having a long-term perspective and patience is also really essential, especially with investing, because the markets move up and down every day. In the short run, it can be quite a roller coaster, but if you look at it in the long term, markets grow, they go up. So if you have a longer term vision and perspective, and you really embrace that, then you're not going to be swayed by short-term market fluctuations or life events that can kind of throw you off course. So that kind of helps you be consistent as well.
Okay. Yeah, do you follow, because any specific way to recommend the step-by-step process to it? So let's say today I want to start investing, right? And then I am starting from zero, right? So do you have any steps to follow towards my goal? Because maybe my goal is too ambitious. So how can I divide that into milestones that we can kind of go step by step? And just sorry, I will just mention, I'm just comparing this. For example, I know about, for example, Dave Ramsey, right? He have this complete step by step process, for example, that, but he's in the spectrum that zero debt, right, or zero credit card debt, or as much as possible, right? Or, and of course there is other advisors that they are in another level and more risky. So yeah, how to balance these two worlds maybe, or to arrive to the level of, yeah, how to balance these two worlds, and that there is a step by step milestones to achieve, for example, financial independence in certain level.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think the first thing, this is kind of the strategy that I follow and that I normally recommend. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
before I give any sort of financial advice, I have to say that, it's not going to apply to anyone the same way. But generally
Mm-hmm.
speaking, I think people should keep it simple. One of my core beliefs in investment is the power of simplicity. Complex strategies can often bring unnecessary risk and confusion. So I tend to advocate for more straightforward approaches that clients can understand and manage. It not only makes financial planning more accessible, but it also helps maintain a clear focus. Um, in line with that approach, my kind of personal and normally recommended strategy typically includes a blend of, if we're getting practical, of growth funds, index trackers, and maybe some structured products as well. Growth funds can offer the potential for higher returns than the market by investing in companies or industries with a stronger growth prospect. For example, right now, tech and AI is a big one. Then index trackers, so these are just funds or ETFs that track indices like the S&P 500. They provide a more broad market exposure, which is a bit more reliant. So that ensures that you have a stake in the overall market performance, and typically offers lower cost as well. And then structured products, which I really like, offer the benefit of defined returns based on defined conditions, and it normally comes with some sort of um, downside risk protection. So this kind of combination of three things generally, I think, gives a pretty good balance. And then, of course, the three biggest tips for investing is diversify, diversify, diversify. So diversification is, a central concept in any investment philosophy, which is it's the classic strategy of not putting all your eggs in one basket. It applies in different things. But yeah, so while that kind of combination and approach works well for me and has worked well for my clients, it's about tailoring your approach to your situation or your different client situation. Different factors like risk tolerance, financial goals, investment timelines, are crucial in determining the right mix for different people. So yeah, but that's basically the framework. I keep it pretty simple. Don't try to fix something that's not broken. I think people can be swayed by seeing things that sound too good to be true, but I think a lot of things that sound too good to be true are sounding too good to be true because they are too good to be true. So I tend to kind of keep it simple with my approach.
Okay. We have been mentioning, of course, compound interest a lot into this conversation. So maybe we
Yeah.
should have the time to mention, yeah, what does it mean, compound interest, or how would you explain it for babies, or simple ways to explain it?
Yeah, I mean,
um,
compound interest is maybe the most powerful concept in finance. Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world, and he did that for a reason. He's a smart guy. In very simple terms, compound interest is interest on interest. So it's where an interest you earn on an investment also earns interest over time. So, let's say you invest $100 with an annual interest of 10%. In the first year, you're going to earn $10 interest. So you now have $110. In the second year, you earn interest not only on the initial 100, but also on the additional $10. So now you have $110 that's earning 10% interest, and so on and so on. So this process continues each year with the interest amount growing each time because the base gets larger. So your original investment plus any accumulated interest over time. So that's what makes compound interest so powerful, is that over time, the interest you earn grows exponentially rather than on a linear basis, which allows your initial investment to grow at an increasing rate, which is another reason why starting early is so important. And, I mentioned how 99% of Warren Buffett's fortune was made after he turned 50, and compound interest is exactly why that is.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about the specific age when it started, but I think it was in the early teenagers ages or something like that, or even before. I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
again, I mentioned having a long-term perspective and patience, and this is part of why, because it's gonna get better and grow exponentially. So if you kind of stay consistent in the first few years, you might not see the results that you wish for. But if you just stay the course, it will happen if you make wise decisions, and again, keep it simple and not take unnecessary risks. Then compound interest is gonna be on your side.
yeah, and I just assume that, of course, in finance is not. Of course, compound interest is important, diversification is important, but I assume that needs to be complementary as well with, of course, growing personally and professionally so that you can increase your income and then increase the contributions to your investments as well, right? So maybe this is a good way to transition to the other topics. That one of them that you also coach is communication. So is this something that you have tried to unify with when you are advising? Because maybe the people who you are advising about personal finances, maybe they can increase their salary or increase their their work because of improving their communications skills or leadership, or yeah. Is this something you are thinking through?
Yeah, it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily intersect. It might in the future, but it's not right now. It's just, communication is something that I've become passionate about through my work with with TEDx, and just something that I love doing. And I've seen how powerful effective communication can be. But there's a lot of things and concepts that kind of intersect between the two. Working, as an advisor, financial advisor. I also consider myself a financial coach, and there might be different things. It can be challenging. Investments can go up, and they will inevitably go down sometimes. So and people don't like seeing their investments go down. So if they don't consider themselves investors, or don't have the right investor mindset, maybe my kind of background in coaching can help coach them through, doing some mindset shifts or anything to kind of help them stay the course and understand the big picture.
Yeah, it's maybe also closing the account and not see it when it's down, or or seeing too much as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that maybe people is scared, right? Watching the reg numbers, right? So, but then, yeah, you need to take it in the long term, as you're mentioning. Since we kind of start talking about communication, so maybe we can transition into the TEDx part as well. So, Yeah, what is the story behind the TEDx UNYP? Can you tell us a bit how this idea come into realization?
Yeah, I mean, TEDx UNIP, it's, almost get emotional every time I talk about it, even after 8 years, because it's just like the most incredible thing that's happened in my life. I think a lot of times, so many dreams can fall short of expectations. But TEDx UNIP for me is the exact opposite of that. It's almost like a dream I never knew or thought that I had. Um, it started, so yeah, the way it started, when I was a student in my last year at my bachelor's university in Prague, I was president of the student council, so I had pretty good relations with the administration um, of the university. And the idea came about of amongst the students and the student council of starting a TEDx event for the university. So this was meant to be just a university event. So I went up to the administration. I called a meeting with the general manager and the marketing director, who was new at the time, Mark, who's my co-organizer in TEDx UNIP. And I pitched the idea of starting a TEDx series at the university. And it was a pretty easy sell because it wasn't meant to be so big. We started, for the first few years, it was just held at the auditorium at the university. We could barely fit 80 people in it. It was mainly focused on the university community. And then we just got so much interest, and it naturally grew over the years. And now it's one of the biggest events of its kind in the Czech Republic and maybe even Central Europe. You were there at our last event, so you know what it is. But now we hold it in an arena. We have 600, a sold out crowd of 600 people. We have speakers flying from all over the world who are like just at the top of their fields. So it's just been an incredible journey, and it's weird for me to even think about what it's become. And that's something that I started with help from a lot of other people, of course. Um, has managed to kind of become what it is, but the vision and mission for it stays the same. It's just on a much bigger scale now.
Okay, sounds good. So, and do you have any specific future goals? You're already starting to work into this year 10x, or yeah, how does it look for the future?
Yeah, I mean, for me, TEDx UNIP is all about impact. Our vision
Mm.
for TEDx UNIP is to continually expand and deepen our impact. Looking ahead, I hope we continue to curate a broad range of thought-provoking speakers who bring unique perspectives and transformative ideas. Our goal is really to make it a platform for innovative thinking and curiosity, where speakers and attendees from different backgrounds and disciplines can come together and spark conversations that matter. The interdisciplinary nature of TEDx is something that I love so much. We talked at the very beginning about how my background, my work, even my personal life is very multifaceted. So I love that about TEDx. Is just about sparking conversations that matter, regardless of the field or subject. We're also focusing on expanding, community engagement, creating a more interactive and collaborative experience for our audience. As the host of the event, that's something that's very important to me, and you were there, so I hope that came across in our last event. But
Yeah.
above all, we're just committed to being a platform that not only reflects but also really drives positive change in the community and encourages individuals to contribute their voice and their action towards a more inspiring future. And even now, it's been, how many months has it been since our last event? 3-4 months, and I still get messages from people who were there about how much it's impacted their lives and how they've changed their life drastically and are now like healthier, happier versions of themselves. And that's just, it's mind blowing to me that I have any small part to do with impacting people's lives like that.
Good. So you're planning to keep it going with impact as a focus, as you're mentioning, and of course that more of these stories repeat after the events.
Yeah, I mean, if they let me do it, I'll do it, until I'm in the grave. I love doing it so much. My main work is with coaching the speakers and working on the speaker experience and hosting the event. And I just love that line of work because I get to work with just the most incredible people from all different backgrounds and disciplines. I've worked with some of my personal heroes, people I've looked up to and have been a fan of for years. And, we've become friends through the experience. So it's been the most incredible platform, not only for the audience and for ideas, but also for, making connections and friendships. So it's the best.
Mm, good. And if you reflect into the previous events, so do you have some kind of valuable lessons that you believe you are trying to apply in your daily life now, or apart from, of course, the great memories of friendship and work with your team, of course, but there is something that you believe, okay, yeah, I incorporated this in my life, it has been a nice lesson from this.
Yeah, I mean, I was a kid when I started TEDx. It was before I even had any real job. I don't think I knew anything back then. And now I'm, coaching, business leaders on communication and all that. So it's been an incredible journey of growth and learning for me. One valuable lesson is that, we all have a story to tell, and sometimes we don't even know it. And the art of storytelling is so important in communicating ideas. The best TEDx speakers always use stories to connect with the audience and to make complex ideas, simple and accessible and engaging. So it's shown me the value of narrative in communication and storytelling, whether it's a presentation, a business meeting, a casual conversation. The way you tell your story matters, and you always have a story to tell. This is something we work on with speakers all the time. Finding their story. They have it, but they might just not know what it is. So that's very rewarding work. So I think like the power of communication and different aspects of it, like storytelling, is the main lesson that I learned from working with the different speakers. And then just the importance of connection and the value of community as well.
Mhm. Good. um, yeah, on this topic of storytelling, so do you have any tips towards what to do to incorporate storytelling in the working environment, not only on a presentation, but imagine you need to communicate and express something to your coworker, or
Mm-hmm.
try to convince them to act in certain area, or yeah, so how do you have any tips or recommendations or even resources where people can go into this direction to try to incorporate this more into their life?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, storytelling, as I said, it's so important. We've been telling stories for way longer than we've been reading and writing. So we're wired to respond positively to them. As children, we're being read fairy tales and stories, um, and it doesn't have to stay in our childhood. I think storytelling is a really powerful tool in business as well. As a business, you have clients, and these clients are most likely human beings. So storytelling
Mm.
allows you to humanize your message and make it more relatable, and to incorporate storytelling in business meetings or work related activities. I think the first step is really understanding your audience, which is my number one tip for anything to do with communication, is understanding your audience and then identifying a relevant story that connects them with your message. This could be a personal experience, a case study, an analogy, but focus on the why behind the story and why it matters to your audience. And I think all great stories are anchored in something. So be specific, add some visual elements. Don't just say I met with someone a few weeks ago. Say, last Tuesday I met with this lady who came in wearing a red scarf, and then immediately you're going to remember that more often. Now, I personally don't consider myself a super creative person. I'm pretty structured and logical. I think my sister stole all the creative genes in our family. She's a bit of an artist. So templates and frameworks have been really useful to me. Now, going back to fairy tales, which is kind of like the first framework of a story that anyone has ever told as a kid, fairy tales are maybe the ultimate storytelling medium. And they kind of, all the good ones follow a 5-point template. They all start with once upon a time. And then, second is they used to do this. Number 3 is then something changed. 4 is so they did this. And then the 5th one is as a result, they did that. So it's once upon a time, they used to do this. One day something changed. So they did this, and as a result, they did that. Now you can use that framework to tell any story, and it doesn't have to be once upon a time. One of my favorite stories, I got my pilot's license a few years ago just as a hobby. This is like a different thing to talk about. So I really love the story about the invention of the touch screen. So if I would be to follow that framework again, so it's once upon a time they used to do this, one day something changed, then they did this, as a result they did that. So to tell that story, you could say, in the early days of computing in the late 1960s, that's your once upon a time. Computers were bulky and operated only by keyboards. They used to be less user-friendly, and that was limiting their accessibility and usage. One day, I think his name was Dr. Johnson, envisioned a more direct way to interact with computers. So he developed the first touchscreen technology for air traffic control, envisioning a more direct way to interact with technology. As a result, this technology gradually evolved over time, and now it's become integral to modern devices and completely transformed how we interact with technology in our daily lives. So I just told the story using that same fairy tale framework. Now, I now live in Marbella in the south of Spain, which, the biggest industry here is probably real estate. So I've recently started working on communication with some real estate agents. Now, if you have a client that comes here from abroad, let's say from Sweden, that's a big group that comes here to invest, and they come here, they're thinking about potentially investing in property here. You could just tell them the statistics of being, this is how much people have invested in property in Marbella in the last year. This is what their return has been. Do you want to invest? But that, numbers aren't really as effective as a story. So maybe you'll tell the story of how Marbella has become what it is now. So you could start again with once upon a time. Once upon a time, I don't know when that was exactly, so I'll just say once upon a time, but you could be more specific. Once upon a time, Marbella was just a quiet fishing village, largely unnoticed. They used to say it was just another sleepy town along the Spanish coast, charming but unremarkable. Then in the mid 20th century, visionary developers saw the potential and transformed Marbella into a luxurious oasis, attracting international attention. So this once humble village has blossomed into a hotspot for luxury investment and living. As a result, Marbella now stands out as a testament to savvy investment. It's not just purchase of property, it's about investment in a lifestyle desired by many and attained by few. Here, your investment is more than just a home, it's a stake in one of Europe's most exclusive and thriving real estate markets. By telling a story, you're able to really make that potential client see himself or herself as part of something greater than just what everyone else is doing. It's an exclusive opportunity in investing in a place that has grown over time. And so telling stories is just so much better in connecting with people. And when you establish a connection with someone, they're going to trust you more. So there's definitely a place for storytelling in business, and the best business stories are the ones that evoke emotions and create a connection. It's not just about telling, it's about engaging and inspiring your audience to see things from a new perspective. And there's many different tips and tricks that you can follow and different frameworks that kind of will help you apply that in different aspects of your life, depending, regardless of what you do. It could be applied in almost any industry.
Good. Yeah, thanks for sharing all this framework, which is quite important for people to remember. We kind of see it in, as you mentioned, in every movie or or every story that we can watch.
Yeah. And that's why we
Um,
love watching movies.
mhm.
It's because of the stories.
Yeah. So it's, well, actually, yeah, because you, once you know this pattern, then later you find it in the movies, and then you always see it. Okay, let's say it.
Yeah, and it just makes,
Mm.
a lot of people are kind of scared to speak on the spot or being put on the spot. So if you have someone who can train you and coach you into having these frameworks in your head, and these are kind of just templates that you can fill out, then it just makes it easier. It makes you less anxious and just more effective in the way you communicate to people.
Mm. That sounds great. So you have mentioned anxiety now. So, do you have any tips apart from, of course, using a framework like this one of storytelling into how to approach communication and how to reduce anxiety? Because maybe people is too afraid to speak because they are afraid of how people will react or stuff like that.
Yeah, anxiety is a big thing, and it's something I love talking about because I've seen how different strategies can really transform the way people look at it. I think the first step always is to acknowledge the anxiety. It's okay. It's actually a sign that you care. So you should be almost happy that you're anxious about whatever it is that you're about to communicate. I think when you understand and name what it is that you're feeling, you kind of remove its power. So I think the first step is just to embrace the discomfort, and that should already relieve your sense of anxiety to some level. Another kind of obvious one is preparing. We've all heard it. If you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. Being thoroughly prepared not only boosts your confidence, but also gives you a safety net to fall back on because you really understand the topic inside out. If it's a scripted talk, then you own the script. You don't just remember it. And you've practiced it multiple times until you really, really know it inside out. And then another thing that I love working on is mindset shifts. I think that really helps with anxiety. There are three main ones. The first one is reframing public speaking from a chore or something that you have to do into an opportunity. I recently worked with a young female business leader who's suffers from public speaking anxiety, and she told me that in her job, a lot of times she negotiates her way out of public speaking opportunities that are being offered to her because she's so nervous and anxious about it. But when she presents to her team, where she feels comfortable, she establishes amazing connections and really inspires people. So, if you think about if she stopped negotiating her way out of all these speaking engagements that are being offered to her and sees them as an opportunity, then imagine how many more people she can connect with, how many more people she can inspire, and that could kind of motivate you to get out of it. Um, Another one, which is something I say to all of our TEDx speakers, is to look at it less as a speech and more as a conversation. If you reframe that mindset, I think that shift in perspective can significantly reduce pressure and make the experience more enjoyable. I think, a great TEDx talk should be just as powerful if you say it to a stranger sitting next to you at a dinner party, as it would be on a stage in front of 600 people. So if you can think about, you're just there. I always say that to the speakers we have, you're there to have a conversation. I know you're on a stage and there's 600 people in the audience and lights and cameras on you, but it's just a conversation. So, don't be so anxious about it. And then the last one, which I really love because there's some science behind it, and I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to science, is reframing anxiety into excitement. When you think about the physiological symptoms of anxiety, sweaty hands, weak knees, racing heart rate, these are all the same symptoms of excitement. So it can all just come down to how you frame those sensations in your mind. If you shift your perspective from anxiety to excitement, that can really be transformative. I used to be really anxious about public speaking, and now I crave it. Now I'm super excited to get on stage, but I still feel the exact same things that I felt when I was anxious about it. So I think that shift can really empower people to overcome public speaking anxiety, whether they're on a TEDx stage, at a business conference, or just leading a client meeting on Zoom. So I think different mindset shifts can be really powerful. And then once you kind of go through it a few times, you just kind of get used to it. Like I said, I used to be really anxious about public speaking, and now I love it. I'm always excited when opportunities come my way, but I still feel the same sensations, and I allow myself to feel that because again, it means that I care about what I'm doing. So acknowledge that.
Yeah, it's important to acknowledge that, of course, as you're saying, right? So that's the first step, and then everything will be better after that. Good. Yeah, maybe we have been talking about a lot on talking, right, and public speaking. are these tips also apply for written communication? Because it's something that we do a lot nowadays, right? So do you have how do you iterate these concepts from speaking in a talking to a written way? Is there any specific tips for written way, or yeah?
Yeah, I think most of it follows the same
Mm,
thing. A great structure for communication, it's a 3-point structure, and it's
mm,
uh, what, so what, then what. Those 3 questions ask yourself. So the what is, what is it that you're trying to communicate? So what is, why should people care about it? Go into more detail about it. And then what is, what action do you want the person you're communicating to take at the end of as a result of your communication? So it's what, so what, then what. And that applies if you're talking verbally to someone, it applies the same way. And if you're writing an email, then you could apply it in the same way as well. So, the what could be the subject line of the email. So what is it that the email is about? Then when you write the email, go into the so what, why are you writing the email? Why is it important? Get into the details. And then most communication ends with, or should end with, some sort of call to action, whether you want someone to do a certain things, follow up, send you a presentation, you know, do anything. So if you, it's the same thing. And then the important aspect of connection and being genuine and authentic applies the same way. I personally hate when when you work with people and have a conversation with someone, it's not always super formal. But then for some reason, when you write an email, all of a sudden it's dear Mr. Grinvald instead of hi Amit. Um, I don't do that. I don't write dear Mr. or Mrs. someone unless I really have to, because it's just not, it's not real, and it's not how we normally communicate. People like dealing with people, I think. So if you're authentic, then you can connect and build trust. So I think your tone can be the same whether you're writing something down or saying it out loud in a speech. And there's a place and a time for different tones. If you're writing an article, there's going to be it's going to be a little different in written form than if you were to give a speech. But generally speaking, I don't think there should be such a clear differentiation between verbal communication and written communication. You can generally follow the same frameworks and structure and tone and language, and I think it can be just as effective.
okay. And what does it mean for you to be authentic, apart from not using this formality maybe when you don't really need it? So is there any tips into this? Like, um, yeah, can you mention what does it mean authenticity for you, and maybe what specifically would you suggest for people to be more authentic and not trying to be someone else, maybe?
Yeah, I think always try and define and reflect and evaluate on the value that you have to bring to whatever
Mm,
project or conversation, or any venture that you're in. What is the value? Why are you there? You're there for a reason, and you have something unique to bring. So do that, and understand the audience, tailor your communication, tailor your approach to what is relevant for whatever audience you're dealing with, but still do it in the way that you would do it, because you're there for a reason. You were hired for that job for a reason. It's because of you and what you can bring to the table, and that can evolve. So like, keep evaluating that, keep thinking about what your purpose is, what your value is, and that's going to help. With, I think, we're all of service in some way. Whether you're, for example, a software developer might not be traditionally seen as being in a service role, but they are serving by creating solutions that make life or work more efficient. A manufacturing company, while it's more product focused, it still serves by producing quality goods that meet specific consumer needs. So they have an audience, and they're serving them in whatever way they're doing it. So, I think approaching that kind of service oriented mindset and evaluating what your purpose is and what your value is going to allow you to be more authentic in the way you engage with people, in the way you do work, and it's just more fun that way. It's just better to do it the way that you know how to do it, and no one else is like you, so embrace that.
Yeah, that's an important message as well about that more or less, well, we all of course are unique, so it's maybe how to integrate that in your everyday communication as you're mentioning, right? Do you have any specific tips towards that? Towards let's say today you are coaching me, and I want to start incorporating my values more into my emails, into my talks, and so on. So, what is this first step that someone needs to do? Is an exercise to write down the values and unique characteristics of myself or someone else, right? Or what is this starting point?
Yeah, like think about what drives you. Are you
Mhm.
are you going from a place of your values, and then at what are your values and what are the values of whatever company, whatever client it is that you're working with, and where do they meet? What's the intersection? What are your shared values, your shared experiences? Because that's, those shared experiences are what's going to allow you to connect. And the more open you are to connection and interaction and engaging with people, the more you'll realize that, even though we're unique, we're less unique than we think. And we have so many shared experiences as long as you can be authentic and honest about it. And when you connect with people, they trust you more. And when you establish trust, you can kind of build more meaningful success, not just success because you followed steps A, B, and C. It's success that really resonates with what you care about, what your audience cares about. So I think, being more value driven, more purpose driven, and more authentic in any engagement or any interaction is just gonna, allow you to live a more fulfilled life, both personally and professionally, because it doesn't have to be one or the other. It could be in both.
Yeah, of course. Um, yeah. So, do you have any specific podcasts or tools or areas where you like to read as well, or media, right? That maybe you can recommend. It can be in the different topics of personal finances or communication as well, or TEDx as well.
Yeah, in terms of podcasts, one of my favorites, and I think it's like one of the top performing podcasts in the world, is On Purpose with Jay Shetty. I started listening
Mhm.
to it at the beginning of last year, when I was kind of switching my career. So I was in a pretty big transition in life. I moved to a new country. I was looking for, starting a new career, and I wanted to lead with purpose. So I started listening to On Purpose with Jay Shetty, which I think is a great podcast. It touches on a lot of different subjects. It's not about anything specific, so you can just pick and choose depending on what it is that you're looking for and that you want to delve into different aspects in your life. It also includes communication, so that can be really great. I think he's also a great example of a communicator. He's a great listener, and being a great listener is such an important part of being a communicator. Um, and he has some really incredible guests. In one that I've started listening to recently, which I think is really good, this is communication focused, is it's called Think Fast, Talk Smart. I don't remember who the host is. I just started listening to this last week, and I was listening to it the whole weekend. And that provides really practical, actionable advice on communication strategies in a variety of contexts. So that's been a personal favorite of mine recently. Then I'm really passionate about fitness, and I'm a bit of a science geek, as I mentioned. So I really like the Huberman Lab podcast as well. There's some really interesting episodes on that. But yeah, I've really learned to embrace podcasts in the last year, and I think that if you're not into reading books, which some people are just not into, I think it's increasingly less of a thing that people do, which is a shame. But if you're not into reading books, then while you're commuting to work or when you're taking a walk with your dog, or just on your own, then I think listening to podcasts is a great source of knowledge and inspiration.
Good. Do you have any favorite book that for has changed something in your life or has been this aha moment for you?
Oh, changed my life. Yeah, when I was a kid, I mean, I was a big Roald Dahl fan. So the author of Willy Wonka, Charlie and the
Mhm.
Chocolate Factory, um, James and the Giant Peach. I just loved the like creativity. It really just like I was quite young when I started reading, and I really got into his books because it just like took me into like this incredible imaginative place. So I think those were the books that initially kind of started my love for reading as not necessarily an escape, but just um, you know as a way to just see the soul of the world. That's get out of the four walls that surround you into something else without having to walk out of the room. As for what changed my life, one book that I remember in high school, my history teacher um, recommended to me. He gave me his copy of Who Moved My Cheese, which is a funny title by Dr. Spencer Johnson. Um, and it really, I remember it really blowing my mind. That it's a pretty simple, short parable about change, adaptability, and resilience, which I think is a really interesting topic. And it offered some really like invaluable perspectives. And it's a pretty quick read, so I would really recommend that for anyone. It's very easy to get through. One very memorable question from the book is it poses the simple question, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Which I remember reading that and thinking like, oh wow, that's such a powerful question to ask yourself. And so yeah, so that book, changed my life. Is pretty dramatic, but I really remember reading it and being wowed by all the different kind of elements and questions that it posed. It's really about confronting and overcoming fear in the face of change, and change is inevitable. We're all gonna have to deal with it in some way. So I highly recommend it. It's a great book. It's called Who Moved My Cheese.
Great, great. Thanks for sharing. So, of course, I think I heard about it, but maybe I even read it, but yeah, I don't remember right now. But yeah, it's always good to have more books to read or listen.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's
um,
it's very short. It's very easy to get through.
mm, Good. Do you have any specific related to personal finances books that you follow or that has been meaningful for you in your journey?
Not so much. I mean, again, like I said, I follow a pretty simple approach. I follow people on LinkedIn that share different things on finance, and I more so tend to read different articles. The Economist, the Business Insider, different magazines and newspapers on finance. And I have a decent amount of experience with corporate finance and accounting management from my past. So yeah, I mean, I don't really listen to too many podcasts or read too many books about it, just because I feel like there's a lot of information that I consume on a daily basis from people I
Mm,
work with, my manager, my colleagues, and experience of great investors who have followed strategies before me, like Warren Buffett, like Charlie Munger, all those people.
got it. That sounds good. Um, yeah, so you have been talking, maybe switching gears a bit now to more your personal life and your changes before closing today. So you have moved to Spain, so and you have talked about the book about Who Moved My Cheese. So you are kind of adaptable to that. You have been moving around in different cities, right? So yeah, how is going for you that change to Spain, and yeah, what are the pros of Spain for you till now?
Yeah, I mean, I really love it here. It was a very difficult decision to leave Prague. I was living in Prague before for almost 10 years, which is the longest I've ever lived anywhere by far. So I built such a great life there with a great community of friends. So it actually took me about 2 years from when I first had the idea of moving somewhere. It wasn't Spain specifically, but I just felt like it
Mhm.
was time to move. So it took me about 2 years to make the jump from when I initially thought about moving to when I actually did it, but it's been a really refreshing change, not just the sunny weather and the beach being 5 minutes away, which is great, but also just something different. You know, I'm someone who finds discomfort in comfort. Even when I was living in Prague, I would move apartments uh, almost every 2 years, just for the sake of something new, not because I hated my old apartment or that I was moving into a place that was particularly nicer. It was just different. So I really like change because I think my life, you know, I grew up in different countries and went to different schools. So I think I just became accustomed to it. So, you know, a constant life gets a little uncomfortable for me, which is a bit of a paradox. So it was time for a change, and it's been really nice to embrace that. You know, Prague is not that far away, so I can still see my friends pretty often. I go to Prague pretty often. I still do some work there with different companies. Um, so yeah, so it's just been nice to, yeah, for life to just be a little different. You know, moving apartments in Prague kind of stopped doing it for me. It was still kind of the same thing. So I had to move to Spain. There's definitely worse places to be stuck in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that sounds great, of course, and more especially now with winter, Spain is a nice decision.
Yeah, yeah, it's not. Yeah, when I see Instagram stories of my friends in Prague currently, it definitely makes me feel like I've made the right decision.
Good. Um, yeah, you have mentioned also that you are really into fitness and health, and yeah, and kind of a geek into this, right? So, can you mention, yeah, how this journey started for you, and maybe what are you currently doing that maybe can be helpful for someone apart from listening to your advice in personal finances? Maybe it could be useful as well to keep your health, because without health we don't have anything, more or less, right? So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been active my whole life, but like one thing that's really kind of become embedded in my personal life philosophy is that I think that people should really actively seek discomfort. I think, you know, we live in a world that's, you know, becoming increasingly engineered, uh, you know, to remove discomfort out of our lives. So I think it's important to expose ourselves to suffering. And by suffering, I don't mean you need to like go punch yourself in the face. It could be things as simple as, you know, cold exposure, you know, cold baths, cold showers. This is something that's taken off in recent years. I think it's just about like regularly volunteering both our minds and our bodies in getting uncomfortable, because that allows us to become acquainted with that inner dialogue that we all have. You know, we talked, you know, change is inevitable in life, and when life inevitably throws challenges our way that can't be ignored or evaded, you're going to have to face them head on. And how you face these moments and the person you want to be within these trying times can be practiced through, it doesn't have to be fitness, but for me, you know, I participate in a lot of races. So, you know, I've completed marathons. I do a lot of Spartan races or obstacle course races. And the most common question I get whenever I finish one is why? You know, why would I choose to put myself through the suffering? And the main reason is that it strengthens and prepares me for all the suffering that isn't my choice. Um, so I'm always kind of seeking the next hardest thing I've ever done. For me, it's been through fitness. And it's just become embedded in my personal life philosophy. I think it just makes us stronger, not just physically, but also mentally. So I think I would strongly encourage anyone to, you know, actively seek discomfort in whatever way is most appropriate to them. It doesn't have to be through fitness challenges or ice baths. It could be through, you know, whatever it is. But I think it's important to practice that, because again, we're gonna be faced with some hard times. I think life is beautiful, but you know, sometimes things happen and you have to face them. So if you can practice that, then you know, it's going back to that thing, you know, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. You can prepare for facing challenges. And to me, that's been through kind of challenging myself through different fitness endeavors and challenges.
good. Yeah, it's, as you mentioned, it's always good to go out of the comfort zone, right? Or yeah, challenge yourself. Is it's something that we maybe forget in their everyday life with a cozy place and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Life is becoming too comfortable for everyone. We everything, you don't even have to ask someone out on a date. You can just do that from like swiping your phone in the comfort of your own home. So, life is just becoming really convenient, which is why I think it's increasingly important to challenge ourselves in other ways.
Good. Um, as a last point for today, so do you have any remarks that maybe we didn't talk today that maybe you want to mention now? Like anything that maybe we forgot, but you believe is quite important for the people listening to us?
Um, no, I mean, I think we touched on it, but I would say like really embrace the power of connection. I found it to be so valuable in my life. So, be open to it, seek it out. If you feel like there's someone, we all have shared experiences. So if you feel like someone can help you as like a mentor role, whether it's, a paid mentorship or just like a friend that has gone through something, then, share with them, be open, uh, be truthful, be authentic, and, connection is really, it's what brings meaning to our lives. It's why we exist. So I think we have to embrace that more.
Mm, good. Do you have any tips about how to do that more frequently? Is it something that you do via LinkedIn right now, or yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I've recently found LinkedIn. In the last year, I've been on very active on LinkedIn, so I've found it to be really cool. People have been reaching out. I've had conversations with people from like Vietnam that have reached out and wanted to discuss something about something that I do, and then we've become friends through that. So I think it's just being open to it. Go to networking events, even if you don't have anything to promote. Just go and meet people. Don't be afraid to strike a conversation with if you go to get your coffee at Starbucks, ask the barista how their day has been, um, and really care about it. uh, if you get onto a bus, tell the bus driver to have a great day. Just we're all in this world together, so I think we need to embrace that togetherness a little bit more. It just brings more value, more meaning, and more like joy to our life. So that's kind of that would be my advice in terms of connection.
Okay. Thanks for sharing those final remarks because yeah, it is in a positive tone as well and a good way to finish for today. So yeah, how can people reach you out if they want to hear more from you or read your articles or connect in general?
Yeah, the best place to connect with me or reach out is through LinkedIn. I'm very active on the platform every day. I publish my own work on there, but if I write articles or do work or hold seminars in different places, then I always post it on my LinkedIn as well. So I think that's the best way for people to reach out to me. It's just my name, obviously, Amit Grinvald. I don't think there's a lot of people with the exact same name. Um, so I think it's pretty easy to find me there. But yeah, LinkedIn is the same way. And I'd be happy for anyone to reach out. I love connecting with people and having conversations.
Okay. Thanks, Amit. It was a pleasure to talk today, and I hope you have enjoyed as well. And yeah, all the success with your all your advising skills and in finances and communication and the TEDx, of course, and the upcoming future.
Thanks for having this conversation. I look forward to staying connected.
So see you around.